Right now on Morning News Now, au revoir Paris, hello LA. The Olympics bids adieu to France with a lavish closing ceremony that saw Hollywood icon Tom Cruise take the Olympic flag stateside. The U.S. men's basketball team picked up another gold, bringing America's total gold haul to 40, tying with China but running away with the overall medal count. And in a reversal, gymnast Jordan Childs is being ordered to return her bronze medal following a controversial appeal. All that and more as the curtain falls on another Olympics. Also this morning, Vice President Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, wrap up a battleground blitz with a rally in Las Vegas. New polling shows Harris leading former President Trump among likely voters in 3 key swing states, but Harris says she's staying focused.
We know this will be a tight race until the very end. And so let's not pay too much attention to the polls because we have some hard work ahead of us.
We've got the latest on all that, plus details of an alleged Iranian hack on the Trump campaign. And panic and uncertainty in Gaza. Tens of thousands of Palestinians are being forced to flee Khan Yunis following a new Israeli evacuation order. It comes after at least 90 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli strike on a school sheltering displaced people. The latest out of the Middle East as pressure mounts for a ceasefire deal. Plus, the FDA says no to using MDMA as a treatment option for post-traumatic stress disorder. We'll tell you why the regulator is against the use of the psychedelic drug for those patients. Well, good morning.
Look who's here. She did not move to Paris.
I know, it felt like it.
Bonjour. You're like, no more French.
Yeah,
no more French.
I know. And I didn't learn any while I was there. But, oh, my gosh. It's good to be back.
Good to have you back and good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
Absolutely. I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for joining us. So happy to be here with you. We're going to start with a final look at where I've been. The Paris Olympics. They came to a rousing finish at the closing ceremony on Sunday. It was a fitting end to the last 2 thrilling weeks of competition. Team USA wrapped up the games with a final weekend of dominance, tying China with the most gold medals won while in Paris.
Team USA got a final boost from the men's and women's basketball teams, both squads cementing their towering legacies by fending off tough challenges from the host nation France in the finals. Those wins ensured that each team extended their decades-long gold medal streaks, but it's clear the rest of the world is starting to catch up there. Several stars added to their legendary status with their performances. First and foremost, that guy right there, Steph Curry, who helped carry the men's team to its 5th straight gold with his red-hot three-point shooting in the 4th quarter. Here's a bit of what he had to say after becoming an Olympic champion for the very first time.
The guys in our locker room, we all signed up for this mission to continue the USA basketball dominance. Obviously understanding it was going to be a really tough task. Smiling, cheesing, having the best time of my life because you know, this might not come around again. So very, very special. Just trying to take it all in.
The U.S. finished at the top of the overall medal count leaderboard with 126, beating the record, shattering the record they set 3 years ago in Tokyo. So let's talk more about it with Savannah, because she was there. First and foremost, I mean, there were so many amazing performances, record-breaking performances, standout moments. What stood out to you while you were
absolutely. It felt like every night we were saying, and the U.S. broke a world record while winning this medal, or maybe not even sometimes winning a medal, which I'll explain in just a moment. So many things in the pool. You cannot, of course, forget Katie Ledecky. I mean, now becoming the most decorated female U.S. Olympian. Just watching her when she would sometimes see, and it was like nobody else was in the pool. Right. Like she was so far ahead,
it's like
you
she's
couldn't
racing
even
me.
See. Right. Like there was just a picture there where she's so far ahead. You just don't see that. You don't see breakaways like that unless you are just like totally of a different caliber of an athlete. She was so fantastic and incredible. Sam Watson, this was a really interesting one. So this is speed climbing. What happened here was he actually ended up breaking his own world record, by the way, which he's done several times. He can climb this wall in under 5 seconds. 4.74 was the time that he ended up with. However, he only ended up with a bronze. So he has the fastest climbing time in the world. You may have seen video of him going up this wall.
He was on our show last week too. We talked to him about that.
And he's so fantastic. But he basically in the match that would have gotten him to the gold or silver round, he did not win that one. Ended up in the bronze medal match. Won that bronze medal by winning that world record as well. Of course, also on the track. Oh my goodness, we have been so dominant on track. Yeah. Sha'Carri Richardson, Gabby Thomas just racking up golds. Gabby Thomas going home with 3, 1 for her 200-meter individual, as well as 2 relays that she took part in. Sha'Carri Richardson finally securing a gold as well as a silver medal these games. So much fun to watch our teams on track. Men's basketball, oh my goodness. Well, first of all, their game against Serbia was tighter, I think, than anyone expected.
Yeah, yes.
That night I was in what's called Team USA House, which was where I was hosting a show from most nights. The crowd was insane. It's filled with Americans who have come to Paris. You go there, you watch. There are athletes around. It was a pretty scary moment because that was not expected. That was not how we anticipated that game to go. Ultimately, U.S. went on to win that and secure the gold medal in the game against host country France. I mean, you can't write it better that it ends up being those 2 teams. We saw some people like Steph Curry in his first Olympics, who you also just heard from there, just absolutely dominating with some of those 3-pointers in the last part of that game. And then women's soccer, gold medal. So exciting for those women finally getting that gold medal secured. It was just, what a moment to see them. It was just very exciting. A lot of the soccer games too were kind of nail-biting, where it was only 1 goal that would end up making us secure that win. So
let's talk about what's making headlines right now. We had Jordan Childs here in our studio just a few days ago with that bronze medal. Now, basically they're saying that bronze medal could be taken away. We remember she initially was in 5th place on the floor exercise. They appealed, ended up in 3rd place, but now an appeal to that, and the Court of Arbitration for Sport is basically saying no. She's got to lose that bronze. Catch us up on what's going on.
Absolutely, yeah. So you just did a great recap there. First of all, I was in the arena for this moment. It was, I mean, I just got the chills when I just said it again because, first of all, just being there and watching, but then, you know, you see this 5th, and you could kind of tell something was going on down on the floor. There was a lot of running around, a lot of activity, and all of a sudden they say, actually, the medal count's changing. Jordan Childs, that was her first individual medal. Of course, the whole team gold medalist in this Olympics, as well as others she has medals from. This was the first time she was winning for an individual event. What happened here, essentially, is that the judges did not give her the proper score for essentially doing something as difficult as she was able to do so. She completed enough rotations. They said she did not. Her coach goes up and appeals that, and the judges admit, we were wrong. We did score that incorrectly. We give her this. It moved her then from 5th to 3rd. The Romanian team, who had their gymnasts in both 4th and 5th place, and was initially one of them was the bronze medal winner for those few minutes, they then appealed on multiple things, actually. They said, hey, you said one of our gymnasts stepped out. That didn't happen. Why don't you give them all a bronze medal? And then one of their appeals also was, your coach did not do that appeal in enough time. You're only supposed to have that minute. They said it was 1 minute and 4 seconds after this had happened that their coach went up. Therefore, they said the scoring should mean that she does not have that bronze, but it's up to the Olympics to decide if she keeps it. They have now said she has to give it back. What is new, though, overnight, it just happened yesterday evening, USA Gymnastics now has submitted evidence that they say conclusively shows that within 47 seconds, that coach went up and made that appeal. Again, a second time trying to get attention, 55 seconds. So within that window. So they're basically saying, we have the receipts that was all within that time period. So now we're waiting to see what that actually means.
Let's just give everyone a bronze. Can we all agree? Like, everyone gets a bronze here. Real quick, I mean, Childs went to social media and then basically is leaving social media now, right?
Heartbreaking, yeah. She said, I'm brokenhearted. I'm taking time away from my mental health. The thing is, when you think about it, like I just explained, I mean, this really initially came down to the judges making an error in the first place. And here she is at the firestorm of this. She has just been getting attacked online, just completely baseless, really disgusting things being said about her in the first place when this happened. And now the fact that it's this back and forth over this medal, it's just heartbreaking to see. And hopefully there's some accountability in what went down. And we are still waiting to see where it lands.
We'll see what happens. And smart move of her to step away for a little bit and take care of her mental health.
She's the best, right? I mean, you were just with her.
She was fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's move on to politics now.
There we go. Let's take a turn. This morning, Vice President Kamala Harris, she's back in Washington after a cross-country campaign blitz with her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
The Democratic duo is riding high after a week of battleground stops in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada, drawing crowds in the thousands. The campaign says a fundraiser Sunday in San Francisco brought in $12 million. This is a new poll from New York Times and Siena College shows Harris leading former President Trump among likely voters in the key battleground states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. All those results within the margin of error.
For more, we are joined by NBC News White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist in Washington and NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns as well. Good morning to both of you. Aaron, I will get started with you. So the Democrats are riding a wave of momentum, it seems, at the moment, especially heading into their convention in Chicago. That kicks off next Monday. What are the plans for this week, and what can we expect at the DNC? Who will we be hearing from?
Well, I think some of the headliners you're going to hear from, we've been able to confirm some of the people you might expect. We will hear from President Biden during the convention in Chicago next week. We'll also hear from former Presidents Obama and Clinton, as well as former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. They'll all be speaking at the event. We obviously will also hear from the new running mate, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, and Vice President Harris will be the headliner likely at the end of the week, which is typically the case in these conventions. This is really an opportunity for the Democratic Party to show in a very physical way that it's rallied around this new ticket. Of course, President Biden dropped out of the race just a few weeks ago now, and since then, Vice President Harris has really been getting out there, trying to let the country get to know her. She's had a running mate with her all last week, as you noted, across those 5 states. This really was a get-to-know-you tour for both of them in so many ways. I was in Nevada and Arizona with them over the weekend, and they filled arenas where people were excited, really. I mean, the energy was electric for each of these large gatherings that they held. And so this week, we know that they don't have a super busy schedule like they did last week, but Vice President Harris has indicated that she will roll out a part of her policy platform this week. We expect to hear some of her ideas around the economy. Of course, during her speeches at these campaign events last week, we did hear her sort of hint at some of the things that she wants to do in a Harris administration. She talked about lowering costs for families and working class people, making child care more affordable and health care more affordable. She, during that stop in Las Vegas, Saturday, sorry, my days are running together here. On Saturday, she talked a little bit about wages and wanting to increase the minimum wage for workers. And she talked about an idea of eliminating taxes on tips as well. And we expect that over this week and into the convention next week, we'll hear a lot more about that.
Aaron, let's pick it up from right there. As you mentioned, over the weekend, she talked about this proposal to eliminate taxes on tips for service workers. Let's play a little bit of what she said. We'll talk about it on the other side.
When I am president, we will continue our fight for working families of America, including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
So, Aaron, I mean, that proposal matches one from former President Trump, who then complained online Harris is copying his policy. What's the Harris camp saying about this?
Well, the Harris campaign hasn't directly responded to what former President Trump said about them copying his idea. I can tell you he did back in June during an event also in Nevada reference this idea of eliminating taxes on tips. And really, at least to us at that point in time, that was the extent of what he had to say about it. Vice President Harris, her campaign released a statement shortly after that speech in Las Vegas where they went a little bit further to say that it would require legislative action in order for something like that to happen. We know that Republicans in Congress had put forth an idea of eliminating federal income taxes on federal taxes on tips that some of these hospitality workers, for example, would earn. Look, it's an incredibly popular idea. This is something that Democrats have supported when it became an idea that Republicans put forth that actually ended up in the RNC platform. And so it's something that we could see go forward. At the same time, Joe and Savannah, there have been economists who have said that it really wouldn't amount to a huge impact for a lot of people. The number of people who would be impacted by this is relatively small, according to some economists. And many of them already don't pay federal taxes on tips because they earn so little in that category.
Dasha, let's bring you in now. Over the weekend, the Trump campaign says it was hacked by an Iranian-backed group. NBC News has not independently verified that the hack took place or where it originated. But what are we hearing from the Trump team?
Yeah, so the Trump team is saying that they were hacked in June around the timing of former President Trump's selection of a vice presidential nominee, saying that an Iranian group sent a spear phishing email to a high-ranking official on the presidential campaign. Now, the hack was first reported by Politico, and the publication says that it started receiving emails from an anonymous account sharing internal documents from the Trump campaign in July. And those documents included research papers on at least two of the VP contenders, including, of course, the eventual nominee, GOP Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. Now, the Trump campaign is saying that, quote, these documents were obtained illegally from foreign sources hostile to the United States, intended to interfere with the 2024 election and sow chaos throughout the Democratic process. That's from spokesman Stephen Chung of the Trump campaign.
So, Dasha, speaking of J.D. Vance, the Ohio senator tried to do some cleanup over the weekend after the former President Trump did not rule out revoking access to the so-called abortion pill. Explain to us what's going on here.
Yeah, so he was asked in an interview on CBS's Face the Nation whether a Trump-Vance administration would use the FDA to block access to mifepristone. This, of course, has been a battle in the courts. He said no. He said that the President Trump wants to focus on individual states and voters in those states making decisions on abortion policies, and for the federal government to respect those decisions. He also said that Trump has consistently wanted to steer the party away from the culture war side of abortion. But guys, this comes after NBC News, during a press conference at Mar-a-Lago last week, asked the former president whether he would take such a step as asking the FDA to revoke access to mifepristone. And as you mentioned there, the former president didn't rule it out. So now sort of a backtrack on that from his running mate, guys.
All right, Aaron Gilchrist, Dasha Burns, thank you both very much for your reporting this morning.
Turning to the Middle East, where Israel is bracing for a possible retaliatory attack by Iran. It could come as early as tonight, coinciding with an important Jewish holiday that starts at sundown.
Yeah, this comes as Israel is expanding the evacuation zone for Palestinians in Gaza, saying it plans to go after more alleged Hamas safe houses in the southern part of the region.
NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez is in Tel Aviv, joins us with the latest. Raf, good morning. Let's start with the news that Israel is expanding evacuation orders in southern Gaza. This is after last week's deadly IDF strike on a school-turned-shelter. At least 90 people were killed. What's going on there?
Joe, Savannah, good morning. This is turning into a grimly repetitive pattern in Gaza. Israel has struck a number of schools turned shelters over the last month. The story is the same each time. Israel says it is targeting Hamas militants who are operating out of that school, but local civil defense authorities on the ground say dozens and dozens of civilians being killed. At least 90 people in total killed in that attack on that school on Saturday. That was in southern Gaza. And all the while that this is happening, this repeated set of airstrikes, we are seeing Israel continuing to issue new evacuation orders. This time it's for residents in the area around Han Yunis, the second largest city in Gaza. And these are people who have been displaced again and again and again by the fighting. And they are once again being told by Israel they need to pack up what few belongings they have and they need to move. And for many, this is concerning that what we are seeing in Gaza is basically an endless war, that Israeli forces move into an area, they say they clear it out, they leave, Hamas regroups, and the Israelis go back in again, and that cycle repeats. Guys.
Ref, last week we reported that Iran might be preparing to launch a retaliatory attack on Israel over the death of a Hamas leader who was killed in Tehran. Joe just mentioned this, maybe as early as tonight. There are reports that there's some disagreement in Iran over the size and scale of any response. Is Israel still preparing for a possible attack? What do we know at this point?
Yeah, Savannah, Israel still very much on high alert, as they have been for the last 2 weeks now. Israelis going to bed every night wondering, is tonight the night that they are going to see another wave of Iranian missiles and drones? As you mentioned, we're heading into the Jewish holiday, Tisha B'Av. It commemorates the destruction of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. There's some thinking, maybe speculation, that the Iranian regime, which is into symbolism, might try to attack on that Jewish holiday. It remains to be seen, but I can tell you Israeli forces forces are on extremely high alert. You mentioned possible disagreements in Iran. The Iranian government is a complicated organization. You have this recently elected new Iranian president. He's relatively moderate. He is jostling for power with the Revolutionary Guard. And of course, the ultimate decider inside the Iranian system is Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. He is the one who will make the final decision on when or if to strike against Israel. Guys.
And Raf, I know this morning there's reporting several more countries have come out in favor of a ceasefire deal. Who's pushing for it, and just where do things stand with that?
Right, so we are heading for this big summit on Thursday that's being pushed for by the United States, by Qatar, and by Egypt. And earlier today, we saw the UK, France, and Germany all urging Israel and Hamas to show up at that summit. The Israelis have said they will. Hamas, so far non-committal, not saying whether or not they will show up. They say they are deeply frustrated with these endless rounds of negotiations. They have made their demands clear that there needs to be an end to the war if Israel is going to get its hostages back. So at the moment, Israel's saying yes to these talks, Hamas not yet. And these European countries are also warning Iran that any escalation right now risks these very fragile ceasefire talks and could potentially plunge the region deeper into conflict. Guys.
All right, Raf Sanchez. Raf, thank you so much.
Well, turning now to economic news this morning, European and Asian markets are both opening in positive territory, but Dow futures are nearly flat in overnight trading as investors await Wednesday's inflation report.
This is welcome news after last week's chaos across the world's financial markets. On Thursday, the S&P 500 recorded one of its best days since 2022, following last Monday's market free fall, which was fueled in part by concerns over softening jobs numbers. Experts say the economy does seem to have stabilized for now, but this week could provide new insight into what is ahead.
So what can we expect in this week ahead? Let's bring in an expert of our own, Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver. He's here on set with us from work. Caleb, good morning. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Tell us now about how this has stabilized. Where are we at right now with the markets? And did we learn anything from this sort of chaos of last week?
Yeah, after all the noise of last week, all the ups and downs, guess what? The S&P 500 closed down 0.04%. That was the smallest weekly decline in like 4 or 5 years. So lots of noise and lots of volatility. The market's essentially flat from last week, but there's a lot of pressure. And this is a key week. We usually don't get that excited about things like weekly jobless claims, but every data point matters now that we're heading towards a potential Fed decision in September to lower rates. We're going to get the weekly jobless claims report on Thursday. We'll watch that closely. But inflation back on the menu here. Producer prices tomorrow. That's what manufacturers are paying for raw goods. And then consumer prices, what we pay on Wednesday. If both continue to stabilize, the hopes for a rate cut in September look good.
On top of all that, we're also getting what? Housing numbers. We're getting some retail sales numbers. What is it investors are looking for? And then based on what happens, what could be the impact?
Yeah, you mentioned retail sales. We're going to get the retail sales report for July on Thursday. But first, Walmart's going to report quarterly results. Home Depot is going to report quarterly results. Lowe's. If you want to know how we as consumers are doing, ask those retailers, because that's where we spend a lot of our money, especially around the housing market. As that starts to open up, Lowe's and Home Depot are going to give us some clues about that. Spending has to hold up, and it definitely has to hold up with a higher income part of the population, because that translates to more GDP. So we're going to be watching those retail sales numbers, but listening to these reports from these retailers. And do we have clarity? Does it look like we're going to get that Fed rate cut in 37 days, 6 hours, and 52 minutes, or not? And if not, you're going to see much more churning in the stock market for the next few weeks.
So for people who are like, okay, I'm hearing all this stuff, maybe my mortgage rate's going to go down, maybe I can finally buy a house, are we going to get that cut? Are we only going to find out about that in September? Is there any chance, based on how any of these numbers look, that we hear anything earlier? What do you expect it to do, and what does it mean then for the average person?
Yeah, let's talk about the mortgage rate. That's already started to slip, and that really follows the yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury. That has been falling, and as that falls, mortgage rates anticipate that. You're seeing that happen. The 30-year now 6.4% and going lower. Housing prices, too, cooling a little bit. Just anecdotally, I see a lot of homes for sale, a lot of people ready to either sell their home and buy something else, where people try to get into that first home. That's good. For stock market investors, and that's a lot of us, through our 401ks, passively or actively, there's going to be a lot of noise and volatility, but the stock market is up some 12% so far this year. It's been a pretty good year so far. We may see some softness. This is volatility in the summer like we never used to get. We're getting it now, and every data point matters, especially this week and going into next.
I made the mistake of looking at my 401k when things were down last week. I was just curious.
Look again today. It's a little bit better.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry for that.
I know.
Kayla, thanks. Good to have you.
Tropical storm Debbie, the storm that certainly overstayed its welcome last week, continued to impact the East Coast over the weekend. Some neighborhoods in Georgia and North Carolina are still cut off from main roads because of flooding, and the cleanup's just beginning after the record rainfall. Now, a new tropical system is developing in the Atlantic, with Puerto Rico right in its projected path. For more details on tracking that new storm and more, let's get your Morning News Now forecast.
And this morning, we are joined by NBC Connecticut's chief meteorologist, Ryan Hanrahan. Ryan, good morning. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, Savannah. Good morning, Joe. And yeah, we've got a new tropical system out there in the Atlantic. This one is expected to become a hurricane over the next couple days. So here it is right now. It's over the Atlantic. It's about 650 miles to the east-southeast of the Leeward Islands. It's moving toward the Caribbean, and it is going to strengthen. If it gets a name, and we think it will, it's going to be Tropical Storm Ernesto. A tropical storm watch has just been issued for Puerto Rico. The storm is expected to strengthen into a hurricane by the time it moves north of Puerto Rico sometime on Wednesday. And then it looks like it becomes a fairly formidable hurricane out in the open Atlantic. The good news is most of our computer models keep the storm away from the lower 48, so it sort of curves out to sea well to the east. As you mentioned, Debbie did overstay its welcome, and we still have flooding issues because of Debbie from the Carolinas all the way down to Georgia and Florida. All these little dots you see here, those are rivers that are out of their banks. River flood warnings continue across a good chunk of the mid-Atlantic and down through the southeast. The other weather story is the heat, especially down south. We've got 18 million people impacted by heat advisories from Oklahoma City to Houston and then across portions of Florida from Miami up toward Jacksonville. And the heat is going to be tough to take over the coming days. Check out the numbers for today. Houston, 97. The heat index, so that feels like temperature, 109. 96 in Panama City. The heat index will be 102. Tomorrow, not much better. Look at this. Galveston feels like 106. Mobile, Alabama, 105. So a whole lot of heat across the south. And that continues through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Now you head to the north, and it's a much, much different story. Temperatures will be a whole lot cooler. We've got this nice northern breeze coming down from Canada, bringing in a cooler and drier air mass. And check out the numbers here. 82 degrees in New York tomorrow, 85 on Wednesday, 84 on Thursday. Head farther to the west through the Great Lakes and the Midwest, same deal. Pittsburgh, 80 degrees tomorrow, and Chicago, temperatures in the low and mid 80s. And Joe and Savannah, it's not just the cooler temperatures, it's also the humidity. The humidity value is coming way down over the next couple days across the Northeast. But down south, still pretty hot, still pretty humid. Something's back over to you.
Love that title there. Pleasant August.
Pleasant. I approve of this week's forecast, at least in this part of the country.
Yeah.
So, all right, Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, you come, you bring us good news. We love it. Coming up, the FDA rejects an application to use MDMA as a treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Why the regulator is against using the psychedelic drug for PTSD and where people who are crying out for effective treatments go next. That's coming up. Welcome back. The FDA is facing some backlash this morning. It declined an application that would allow MDMA, also known as ecstasy, to be used as a treatment for people suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, it's the first time the FDA has considered approving the psychedelic for medical use. If it were to be approved, this drug would have been the first new treatment for PTSD in over 20 years.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. John Torres is here to talk more about this. So walk us through why this treatment was denied. What were the major concerns by the FDA?
And one of the things to remember when it comes to these psychedelics, and we're talking psilocybin, which is the mushroom, ketamine, and this MDMA, ecstasy, it's used in conjunction with talk therapy. And so that's the important thing to remember. And what the FDA said is we're not sure that's working the way we want it to work. And there might be some side effects that we're worried about as well. And we're not sure the study was done the way it should have been done or as well as it could have been done. Their advisory committee a couple months ago said we should not approve this. They followed their advisory committee results and they said let's not approve it at this point, give them some information what they need to do to move forward, and hopefully over the next few years we can get something because this is very much needed. Like you mentioned, nothing in 20 years, and PTSD is one of those things that's very, very hard to treat. And the way these psychedelics work is they essentially open up the door so people can talk about their issues. And then once they can start talking about them, they can resolve those issues or at least get them under control. And that's why these things work. But we need to make sure it works appropriately. And the FDA said at this point, probably not. Other advocates are saying, we should have gone forward with it. So it's at debate stage right now.
We are hearing from some veterans directly. 800 of them last month sent a letter to the president asking for this to be considered, wanting this type of treatment. What is available, if not this, for veterans?
So right now, what is available, and like you mentioned, nothing in 20 years has been approved. There are antidepressants they can use. They work at trying to suppress the symptoms. They don't really work at getting things under control long term. Talk therapy, cognitive therapy, behavioral therapy. But the issue with those, again, is it's hard for people to talk about this. If they can't open that door up and talk about these things that are difficult for them to talk about, you can't get into therapy to talk about them, and you can't get them to the point where you're able to control them and control your life. That's what the psychedelics let them do. And so right now, the advocates and the PTSD sufferers are saying, hey, we need something. Give us something. And the FDA said, at this point, not yet.
So what is next? I mean, does it seem like with more science, it is inevitable that the FDA is going to approve this MDMA treatment?
Possibly. And experts are thinking over the next 5 years, something will be approved. Part of the problem is the FDA doesn't approve talk therapy, behavioral talk therapy. And that's part of what's happening here. And so, that's part of the treatment. And so they're having a hard time wrestling with how do we study that? How do we look at that? And how do we approve that? Or do we even need to? Or do we just need to approve the drugs? What this is doing, though, is this is saying, okay, this is the one more big step forward. Let's take a couple more big steps and finally get to that point where we have it. But by estimates, anywhere from 3.5% to 6% of the adult population suffers from PTSD right now in the U.S. Something's needed.
Whenever I hear a headline like this, same with, marijuana being used for pain relief, things like that, when we knew that, like, before it became recreationally legal in a lot of places in the country, you could get that medicinal card. I always wonder, like, how much is there that some of these things could be doing that we have as either classified as a Schedule I drug or that we just kind of think is a scary bad thing? Are there these pros that we don't understand? How difficult is it to test out some of these things that historically have been, totally illegal, never mind not even knowing the safety of them?
And Savannah, that is the crux of the whole thing here. These things are very difficult to study. In order to study, since they're Schedule I, which means they have no medicinal benefit at this point, and they're very hard to get. They're essentially illegal on the market, and so you have to get them from the government. That was the issue with marijuana and studying it up until a few years ago, because you had to get your marijuana from the government in order to study for it, which means you had to apply for the grants and go through all these different hoops. Now you don't have to do that. With things like this, these psychedelics, it's getting a little bit easier, especially with some of them, like the psilocybins, the mushrooms. And the ketamine, it's getting easier to study those. But what's happening is you're seeing a lot of veterans, a lot of people suffering from PTSD going to other countries where there aren't these barriers and getting the treatment. Now, I do have to say that some of these have side effects, and so you have to be careful of the side effects as well, and that's what the FDA is wrestling with. Yes, there are definitely some pros. Yes, there are definitely some cons, but are the pros overweighing the cons? That's what we need to figure out, and hopefully moving forward, they can do that.
All right. Dr. John Torres, thank you so much.
You bet.
Important stuff. Let's get to some international headlines now. Ukrainian troops are making new advances following that unprecedented attack on Russian territory last week.
NBC's Claudio Lavanga has that and some other world headlines. Claudio, good morning.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. Well, that's right. That incursion started about a week ago, and now Moscow says that Ukrainian troops have advanced about 20 miles into Russian territory. This is definitely the largest cross-border attack by Ukraine's military since the start of the Kremlin's invasion. Now, President Zelensky acknowledged the surprise offensive for the first time in his nightly video address over the weekend. He says the attacks are a chance to restore justice. So far, around 76,000 Russians have been evacuated, and this morning even more Russians in bordering regions are leaving as the threat mounts. Now let's travel over to a pretty scary scene in Greece. Dark clouds are blanketing the city of Athens as hundreds of firefighters battle raging flames surrounding the capital. In the fast-moving fire brought on by strong winds and record-breaking temperatures remains uncontrolled this morning. You can see some of the impact in this village called Varnavas, which is about 20 miles northeast of the capital. Thousands of residents plus 2 hospitals have been evacuated so far. Officials say evacuation orders have also been issued for more than a dozen areas surrounding the capital. And of course, saving the best for last. The women's Italian volleyball team ended the Olympics with a bang by taking home their first gold medal. It was an electric match on Sunday against the defending champs, guess who? The United States. And Italy dominated in straight sets. When we scored a match point, the team fell to the ground in excitement, and guys, I did that too. Well, Joe Savannah, for once, we win, you lose. Well, better luck next time, maybe 2028, Los Angeles. You got 4 years to practice.
There we go. Oh my goodness.
Wow,
Claudio
throwing
just
it down.
rubbing it. You know, we can't take all the golds.
I know.
We are
We
not
gotta
used to
give some.
winning.
It is sad when you see an American team lose, especially in a final like that. But when it makes history for a country, it's very
happy
cool.
for the other teams. Claudio, thank you.
Happy for you, Claudio. Thank you very much.
Coming up, it was an incident that shook the country and raised difficult questions for police.
Yeah, what we're learning about the widely criticized police response to the Uvalde school shooting from new body cam footage. That is coming up next. Welcome back. Let's go to Texas, where over the weekend, new body camera and surveillance footage was released from the failed response by Uvalde police to the mass shooting inside Robb Elementary School 2 years ago. That shooting left 19 students and 2 teachers dead. We do want to warn you, some of the images and the sounds here are disturbing. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson has the details.
Newly released body cam video from the Robb Elementary School shooting appears to capture the moment officers took down the Uvalde gunman in a barrage of bullets. Footage from the day, some blurred or redacted by the city, also showing the chaotic aftermath as panicked officers rushed to get children out of those classrooms and administer aid after 77 minutes in the hallway, waiting to confront the gunman.
Everybody that's not a medic out. Everybody that's a medic not out.
The release due to a court order after a lawsuit from a media coalition, including NBC News. Among the material, desperate 911 calls, including this recording from a man identifying himself as the shooter's uncle.
He's my nephew, man. He's the shooter. I was wondering maybe he could listen to me, because he does listen to me.
Do you know of any change in his behavior over the last couple of days?
No, nothing. He just said that he was mad that his grandma Sally was just bugging him too much.
A person identifying herself as the shooter's cousin also calling 911.
The active shooter, he's my cousin, and I don't want him to come to my house.
The release comes as 2 officers on the ground that day, when 19 children and 2 teachers were murdered, face criminal charges. Former Uvalde Schools Police Chief Pete Arredondo was charged with 10 counts of abandoning and endangering a child, 1 count for each of the surviving children in those classrooms. A second officer, Adrian Gonzalez, faces 29 counts, which includes the children who died.
I've been scapegoated from the very beginning.
Arredondo, who spoke to CNN this week, and Gonzalez have both pleaded not guilty. The public seeing for the first time crucial moments from that heartbreaking day. Priscilla Thompson, NBC News.
We want to bring in NBC News analyst Jim Kavanaugh for a closer look at what this footage reveals. He is a retired special agent in charge for the ATF. Jim, always appreciate your expertise on a subject like this. Have we learned anything new from the release of these new details about how police responded to the shooting? What stands out to you based on what we just saw there?
Frozen leadership. We see frozen leadership, a lack of the correct training and tactical decision-making by an on-scene commander, failure to set up a command post immediately, Savannah. This is a gross police failure, and it's laid bare at the arms of the leaders, the chief of police of the school district, the commanders who were there, who are frozen, and they had plenty of long guns with them, body armor. They had more than enough to confront the shooter. They did initially, and one officer was wounded, minor wound, and then they just froze. If you contrast that to the shooting into Covenant School in Nashville, a killer with a rifle in a school, shooting children, the Metropolitan Nashville Police arrive, patrol officers, and as they arrive in their cars, they're being shot with the rifle from the killer. Yet they advance, 3 or 4 officers right away, advance into the school and kill the shooter. proper training, decision-making, active shooter, training, and they did the right thing. This is a disgrace, this whole thing.
Jim, as we mentioned, the release of this new information, this video by the city of Uvalde comes only after a lawsuit was filed by NBC News and other organizations. What are some of the things that other law enforcement organizations can learn from all this material that was released?
Well, look at the chaos. Look at the failure to be the leader. You know, when I used to train guys in leadership roles, I would say, look, if you're appointed as the captain of the ship, you can't be down swabbing the deck and checking the engine and doing everything below decks. You have to be on the bridge. And your main job is to make decisions. The leader's main job, in this case, the school superintendent chief abandoned his radio, went to the front line like he was a private in the first trench, and failed to set up a command post, which would have been just directly, say, outside the school door there, where he could get his commanders. I mean, sometimes it's such an emergency you're standing just in a circle or behind a police car. That's okay. Sometimes it's in a nearby house or something, but you set it up immediately, and the job of that command post is to make decisions. We saw the same failure, Joe, in Butler, Pennsylvania, by the Secret Service not setting up a leadership command post in a unified command joint operations center. I set up so many of these. I was on a DC sniper setting them up, Eric Rudolph case, all kinds of bombings and arsons and murders. We always set up joint operations command, and the leader's job is to make the decisions. They failed miserably at it in Uvalde.
Jim, multiple federal and state investigations cited problems in so many different areas: training, communication, leadership, the technology used as some of the issues with police response that day. How will officers train now for situations like this? And how does that sense of urgency in responding to a situation like this be instilled in departments across the country?
Well, we all learn from the vicarious experience of others, Savannah, so all police learn when they see these things unfold, and that's a good thing. But what you have to have is not only active shooter training, but you have to have some of your patrol sergeants and lieutenants. Now, this is city, county, state, federal agencies. Those mid-level supervisors who are the first ones on the scene, you have to have some of them trained into tactical decision-making. In tactical decision-making, time is neutral. People say time's for you, time's against you. If you really understand how it works, time is neutral. Sometimes it's against you. Sometimes it's for you. So you have to be able to read situations when they escalate and de-escalate to be able to deploy your forces right away. That's your job, not talking on the radio and not being the first guy with the first rifle. And in this case, in an active shooter situation, the escalation is at the top. So you don't have time. Time is against you because children are bleeding out in the classroom and other children are being massacred. So, while they were stagnant in the hallway, and he was not actively pulling the trigger, maybe just for a few minutes, you had maybe enough time to get your stack of officers and line them up and charge in. I'm talking about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I'm not talking about 77 minutes. So you might have enough time to get your forces so you're going to win the gun battle. It's no sense sending somebody in who gets killed because that's not going to help the children. You got to win the gunfight, but you don't have a lot of time. So if you understand tactical decision making, you know time is against you, you got to move fast, and you know you got to send the forces in.
Jim Kavanaugh, as always, we appreciate you helping us understand this. Thank you very much. Coming up, we may have only just said goodbye to Paris, but the countdown to the Los Angeles Olympics now on.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at how the city's putting climate change at the heart of its plan to become the greenest venue to date. That's next. Welcome back. Let's get to some money news. All those gold medals from Paris are worth a lot more than just Olympic glory this year.
CNBC's Savannah Hanau has that and other money news. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, welcome back. Good morning, Joe. All right, yeah, so an Olympic gold medal from the Paris Games is worth more than ever, with the potential to get about $900 each. Now, the medals contain 6 ounces of gold, which soared to a record price last month. Prices are also higher for silver, which makes up at least 92% of the medals. Of course, most Olympians don't sell or melt down their medals. What's more lucrative are gifts from their home countries, such as cash and exemption from military service. And get this, a 2-year-old boy is hailed as the pint-sized Picasso, has landed some endorsement deals. The parents of Laurent Schwartz, who lives in Germany, have signed a deal with a paint manufacturer and wallpaper company to sell branded products. Laurent gained a global following this year with his talent for abstract painting. Some of his artwork has fetched up to $16,000. 2 years old.
That is very, very interesting.
Good for him.
The other thing about the gold medal, all the medals, by the way, is there's a piece of the Eiffel Tower in all of them. Which is so cool. I love that fact.
Very cool.
All right.
Thank you, Savannah.
Thank you. Well, as Team USA wraps up 2 weeks of show-stopping Olympic performances, officials in Los Angeles are pivoting their focus to summer 2028, when the city will host the games right here at home. One of their biggest goals is to become the greenest Olympic venue to date. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson takes a closer look at plans to turn LA into a no-driving zone for the duration of the Summer Games.
Be honest, besides maybe the Hollywood sign, this is probably what you think of when you picture LA. And now the idea of a no-car Olympics in just 4 short years is hard for many to imagine, but that's the plan.
Part of having a no-car Olympics means getting people not to drive, but also using public transportation to get to the games.
The 2028 committee is aiming for the country's most climate-conscious Olympics.
What people are going to see is a really different city than maybe what they are expecting.
Plans are still in the works, but organizers say part of the deal is making LA's already pre-existing Olympic venues only accessible by public transportation. To pull it off, the county is borrowing nearly 3,000 buses to drive an estimated 1 million more trips a day, including venues spanning as far as 85 miles across the region, and asking people to keep their roads clear by working from home.
Local transportation officials say that would cost the LA metro system at least $1 billion, and it's not clear who would foot the bill. Safe to say, many Angelinos are a little bit skeptical.
I don't think it's possible.
I would opt to leave town before I would take public transportation.
Transportation professor Jim Moore says it's a bridge too far for a city that doesn't rely on public transportation, and safety is a big sticking point.
The reason the transit system doesn't feel safe right now is because it's not. And there's a lot that we need to do to make it safe.
But this isn't the city's first rodeo.
No traffic, it's just wonderful. Everybody should take the bus.
Metro is hoping they can repeat the success of the '84 games when, despite high volume, drivers reported little congestion thanks to flexible work hours.
LA hosted the Eras Tour. That event really gave us a lot of encouragement. People really would be willing to get around differently.
Golden ambitions in a high-stakes 4-year heat where the judges will be tough.
And one of the venues those buses will travel to is behind me, the Coliseum. Making history, will be the only venue to be featured in 3 Olympic Games, part of the solution for a reduced carbon footprint, all of these pre-existing stadiums. Back to you.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. What do you think? You were in.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they're trying.
Exactly.
There's just not a lot of public
even
transportation there.
Yeah.
All right, coming up, we're seeing how the French put on an Olympic show. How do they vacation?
Yeah, our very own Keir Simmons, poor thing, takes a trip to the south of France for a taste of some sun, sea, and good cooking. How he tackled that difficult assignment, up next.
We're back with some exciting news for all you Disney fans out there. The company announced this weekend it's going to be expanding its parks and resorts. A Villain's Land will be one of the new additions to Disney World's Magic Kingdom, featuring well-known animated baddies like Ursula from The Little Mermaid, Snow White's Evil Queen, Aladdin's Jafar, and many more. It'll include 2 brand new attractions, plus places to eat and shop, of course. Disney says the project will also feature new attractions stemming from popular Disney films and franchises like Cars, Encanto, Monsters, Inc., Avengers, and Avatar, calling this the biggest expansion ever at Magic Kingdom. It's about time the bad guys get their due.
See, it sounds super cool to me, but it's kind of scary, right? For little kids, there's a whole land.
Yeah, just a whole land of evil people who want you to eat bad apples.
Yeah. I love it. Anyway, well, we end this hour with one last trip through France. And for this adventure, NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons went south to experience what it's like to vacation like a real Parisian.
Everybody loves Paris. Emily moved here from America.
I am très excitée to be here.
Snoop Dogg may never leave. But if you're Parisian, it's well past time to take a holiday. And nobody holidays like the French. South is where you likely go, and being French, food is your North Star. So for a taste of authentic France, we are in Marseille. It's also an Olympic city, but they got to host the sailing, so you might have missed it. What they do care about, deeply, passionately, is this.
This is the first course. So this is the soupe de poisson. So basically, this is made with all of the fish that we'll then be eating later.
This is bouillabaisse, or fish soup. Actually, done properly, it's two soups, and it's a Marseille speciality.
You're going to take a piece of garlic, because pretty much everything in Marseille has to have garlic in it.
Okay.
And you're going to, like, rub it against the bread.
Keep doing this.
Keep doing it. Get it really garlicky.
Add a sauce called brie, which also contains garlic. This may not be a good choice for a date night. And cheese.
We're in France, after all,
Right,
and so like,
you have to eat
this
cheese.
is Swiss cheese. Exactly.
C'est magnifique. And that's the first course.
It's very traditional for bouillabaisse. It has to come in two parts.
It has to come in two parts.
Has to come in two
If
parts.
it's not in two parts, it's not bouillabaisse.
It's not bouillabaisse,
Okay,
exactly.
right. Well, now you know.
This is like the appetizer.
Alexis Steinman is a travel writer from New York via Seattle who lives here in France's second largest city.
Marseille is the oldest city in France. We're over 2,600 years old, and we were actually founded by the ancient Greeks.
So there's your Olympic connection, in case you were thinking this was just an excuse for me to eat and drink great food and wine. It is that, obviously, but also after this glorious Olympics, a chance to point out that France is not just Paris. It is, in truth, a country of many faces.
So many people come from elsewhere. That is Marseille's history. So we've been the city of immigrants for 2,600 years. And so often people who, for instance, were born in Algeria and then they came here and had kids, the kids will often say, I'm Marseille first and then I'm Algerian.
Right.
So
But
it's
not
like,
French.
But not French. No, you're always Marseille first and then you're French.
After lunch, a walk.
So you can see this little cove. This is actually what we ate the bouillabaisse. Fishermen are coming into this port.
So the food we ate came from this
This
city,
is sea to
these
table.
boats, to that restaurant. We ate it.
Sea to table.
That
This
is how you eat well. And at the end of a walk, of course, a bar and another drink. Bouillabaisse is very Marseille.
Yes.
This is even more Marseille.
This is even more Marseille. So this is pastis. This was made in Marseille in 1923, but this is what we drink.
We know when it was invented?
Oh, yeah, it was invented in Marseille,
Oh.
and so we're very proud of it.
Pride. Now, that is a quintessentially French characteristic wherever you go. And frankly, it's justified.
So we'll say santé.
Santé. Keir Simmons, NBC News, Marseille.
Said a lot of that, santé.
That is going to do it for this hour morning news now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good Monday morning. I'm so happy to be back here in New York with you. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer right now on Morning News Now. Put it in the books. Another whirlwind Olympic Games now in the rearview mirror. Team USA racking up a record number of medals in Paris. But one of those medals is in question this morning with a controversy that's grabbing headlines. By only 4 seconds may separate gymnast Jordan Childs from winning bronze, and the fallout that is now rocking the Olympic world. We're also watching an election season shakeup this morning. The Trump campaign alleging over the weekend that it had been hacked back in June by, quote, foreign sources out of Iran, though we should note that NBC News has not independently verified that claim. We'll have the latest on that as brand new polling shows Vice President Kamala Harris narrowly ahead of Mr. Trump in several key battleground states within the margin of error. We've got the latest from the campaign trail as Democrats ride a wave of momentum leading up to the party's national convention just 1 week from today. And if you're looking to take one last sweet summer getaway, we've got some tips on where you can snag last-minute deals as travel prices across the board dip with the the temperatures. That sounds very nice. Perhaps Paris.
Yeah, exactly. They've had their moment. Maybe now you can go. Yeah. It actually was not that crowded. It was a very
people. I bet a lot of people got out of town.
So many Parisians were like, I will not stay for this.
And now they're back. Welcome back to Paris, Parisians. All right, let's begin this hour in Paris with a look at the highlights from the Olympics, which did come to an epic close on Sunday.
Yeah, Team USA ends the Summer Games with one of their most successful Olympics ever, thanks to a weekend of several historic podium finishes. Sha'Carri Richardson led the track team to their final gold, while men's and women's basketball each extended their decades-long gold medal streak. On the pitch, the women's soccer team recaptured the throne as Olympic champions, winning gold for the first time since 2012. We have goalkeeper Alyssa Nair to thank for that after yet another display of game-saving heroics. Nair made another unbelievable save in the final minutes of the gold medal match against Brazil to do something no women's soccer team has ever done before. It's incredible. More than 300 minutes in the knockout rounds of the Olympics without conceding a single goal. Take a listen to what she said about her team following their latest gold medal.
It was a true collective effort. It took every single person. I think that you saw that unity, you saw that togetherness, and that's the heart of U.S. soccer. I think that's the heart of U.S. is just that coming together and doing it as one team.
Team USA leaves Paris with 40 golds and 126 overall medals. That is the highest medal count since the Los Angeles Games in 1984. We'll be talking about the Olympics all morning. We'll have a lot more from Paris over the next hour.
All right, politics now. The Democratic National Convention kicks off in Chicago a week from today. And this morning, new polls show Vice President Kamala Harris is narrowly leading former President Trump in 3 key battleground states within the margin of error. It comes as the Trump campaign says it was hacked earlier this year by an Iranian group. NBC's Garrett Hake has the latest from Washington.
Hey, Joe, Savannah, good morning. This race has changed dramatically in the month between the two-party conventions. Now the new Democratic ticket is riding a wave of new enthusiasm, with crowds of thousands and millions of dollars in donations, building a surge that started to show up in these battleground polls and in Donald Trump's evident frustration.
With the Democratic National Convention now just 1 week away, Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz wrapping up a week-long battleground blitz, rallying a fired-up crowd of 12,000 supporters in Las Vegas Saturday.
We know this will be a tight race until the very end. And so let's not pay too much attention to the polls.
Both online and at rallies, former President Donald Trump has repeatedly accused Harris of lying about the size of her crowds.
They said, oh, she had a big crowd. Oh, the crowd.
The Harris campaign poking back on social media with a photo of one large crowd writing, Trump has still not campaigned in a swing state in over a week. Low energy. The former president also pushing a baseless conspiracy theory about President Biden.
I hear he's going to make a comeback at the Democrat convention. He's going to walk into the room and he's going to say, I want my presidency back.
New polling now shows Harris leading Trump among likely voters in 3 key swing states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, all within the margin of error. Over the weekend, the Trump campaign said it was hacked by an Iranian group in June, and the documents were, quote, obtained illegally from foreign sources. The statement came after Politico said it was sent Trump campaign documents from an anonymous email account. NBC News has not independently verified the hack. Meanwhile, Vance is trying to walk back Mr. Trump's recent comments on abortion, suggesting he's open to banning access to a commonly used abortion pill.
Would you direct your FDA, for example, to revoke access to mifepristone? That's one of the things that's been discussed.
You could do things that would supplement, absolutely. And those things are pretty open and humane.
Vance says the former president believes that decision should be left up to the states.
You, of course, want to make sure that any medicine is safe, that it's prescribed in the right way, and so forth. But the president wants individual states to make these decisions.
Trump is also accusing the vice president of stealing one of his new policy proposals after she endorsed eliminating the federal tax on tips this weekend. It's a potent issue, especially in battleground Nevada. Trump had backed the same policy 2 months ago, a rare moment of agreement between two campaigns who agree on almost nothing else. Joe, Savannah?
True. All right, Garrett, thank you.
For more, we are joined by NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Mark, good morning. Great to see you. Let's start with that Harris lead. What are your biggest takeaways from this polling?
Yeah, these are the three most important battlegrounds in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I think the biggest takeaway is that you have Harris with the lead within the margin of error. But this is a reversal from what the polling ended up finding in the spring, and also even in Pennsylvania right after that first debate between Donald Trump and President Joe Biden. When you end up looking, Harris is doing a little bit better with independent voters. The breakdowns among Black and young voters are kind of similar to where they were, but maybe the biggest change of all has to do with just Harris is seen as popular with a +2 net rating in those combined battleground states versus a -20 net rating for President Joe Biden in Pennsylvania right after that debate.
Obviously, the Harris team is going to want to keep this momentum going as we get closer to Election Day. The DNC could help with that. But how do Democrats plan to actually do that? Is there any room for Harris to grow, or does it seem likely this could eventually even out?
Joe, I think that remains one of the biggest mysteries over the next 3 months. Is all of this kind of movement in Harris's direction just a function of being a honeymoon after Joe Biden's exit from the race? Or is this something more durable? And of course, you ended up mentioning the Democratic National Convention, which takes place next week. We're going to end up seeing one, if not more, debates possibly between Donald Trump and Vice President Harris. And so there are potentially some big moments to either kind of keep those poll numbers in Harris's direction, or that they might end up changing.
Let's turn to the Trump campaign, because I think until about 3 weeks ago, it felt like the momentum was maybe there after their convention, after the assassination attempt, and then we have this switch on the Democratic side and maybe some momentum switch. What is the Trump campaign strategy ahead here in light of that?
Yeah, Savannah, I ended up mentioning Harris's popularity. They have to actually start changing that and make her into a more unpopular political figure. And also in the issue matrix, the New York Times Siena polls ended up finding Donald Trump with a lead on the economy and immigration, while Harris was ahead on abortion. So the Trump campaign needs to seize into the economy and immigration, to make those kinds of cases, particularly when polls show that the economy and the cost of living remain the biggest issue for voters heading into the election in November.
Mark Murray, as always, thank you so much.
Tensions are once again escalating in the Middle East. Israel is now ordering more evacuations in southern Gaza after launching a deadly airstrike on a school-turned-shelter over the weekend. This as Israel and the U.S. make new moves in the region tied to the looming threat of a retaliatory strike from Iran. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has the latest.
The mood here in Tel Aviv remains calm, even as the Israeli government is telling people to stockpile food and be ready. As analysts say, a military reprisal from Iran and Hezbollah could come tonight.
Hezbollah this morning fired dozens of rockets into northern Israel. Israel does not think this is the retaliation for its assassinations 2 weeks ago of a top Hezbollah commander in Beirut and a Hamas leader visiting Iran. But it may be a warm-up. Israel is bracing for coordinated strikes, possibly missiles and drones from Iran, Hezbollah, and other of its allies across the Middle East. Israeli blood banks are preparing. Hospitals moving patients into basements. Shelters getting ready. The Pentagon announced overnight it's moving a U.S. submarine to the region to join the extra American warships and fighter jets already rushed here. All of this while Israel's ongoing war in Gaza, launched after Hamas's October massacre, is not slowing down. Hamas is still holding around 115 hostages. This weekend, Israel bombed a school in Gaza City being used as a shelter. Local officials say at least 100 people were killed. Israel says at least 19 militants were hiding there. In the U.S., Vice President Harris condemning the civilian deaths.
Israel has a right to go after the terrorists that are Hamas. But as I have said many, many times, they also have I believe, an important responsibility to avoid civilian casualties.
More than 2.2 million people live in Gaza, penned in by Israel's blockade of the area. The UN says nearly 2/3 of all buildings have been damaged or destroyed. Diseases are spreading. The World Health Organization has found traces of polio. Israel has also ordered more evacuations in Gaza, usually a prelude to new military action, telling Gazans to leave a designated humanitarian area. Dua Kata is moving with her 3 daughters. The youngest, Julia, just 7 months old, has moved 7 times. What is the sin of this young baby? She should grow up with flowers and colors, not bombs, she says.
Amid the war, there is also diplomacy, with the Biden administration pushing what it describes as last-ditch ceasefire and hostage negotiations this week.
All right, Richard, thank you.
Let's turn to Brazil, where aviation authorities are hoping to get a better idea of what caused a flight to crash on Friday, killing all 62 people on board.
The aircraft was reportedly flying normally until it stopped responding to calls and started spiraling out of control before crashing into a gated community near Sao Paulo.
NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas joins us with the latest. Guad, good morning. Let's start on the investigation. Are we any nearer to finding out what could have caused this plane to seemingly spin out of control?
Joe, Savannah, good morning. Well, Brazilian authorities spoke after they were able to recover the black box, which includes the flight data recorder as well as the voice recorder. Now, what they said during that press conference is that pilots did not report an emergency or any type of adverse weather conditions. So the evidence that they have will come from that black box and also, of course, from this terrifying video that we've seen over the last few days. And the wreckage will remain at the site as investigators continue recording or gathering more data. They're also being helped by investigators that are coming in from France to aid with that investigation. So as of now, that's all the information we've received from authorities.
We know these investigations can take a long time. Where do we go from here? How long could it be before we have more information about what happened?
Well, Joe, for now, there was a lot of focus on recovering the remains of the victims. Over the weekend, it was announced that all of the remains had been recovered and taken to a facility where they're now being identified. Now that has been done, the investigators that arrived from France have joined authorities, including the Brazilian Air Force, as they investigate the wreckage that we can see in these images and try to get more understanding that, of course, as we know, these investigations can take months or years, and they will work with what you can see in these images, the pieces left, along with the video, and of course the data that has been recovered in that black box will also help them as they continue with that investigation.
Guad, we're learning more about the victims, including reports that there may have been several doctors on board heading to a cancer conference. What do we know?
Savannah, we're learning it was a group of doctors that were heading to a conference, a cancer conference, essentially, to improve their skills as they battled cancer, and they unfortunately were on this flight. We also learned that the youngest victim was a 3-year-old. There was a family that family members report this was a family that was returning to Venezuela. Also, there's reports that there was an attorney who helped individuals fight against airlines and specific lawsuits, essentially helping passengers that had issues with airlines. These are the first reports that we're getting from friends and family members of all of those that were on that plane. Of course, as authorities continue to identify the remains of everyone that was on that flight, we'll keep learning more about the victims.
Guad Venegas, thank you very much.
Things are heating up in the southeast and cooling down in the northeast. Let's get your morning news now forecast.
This morning, we are joined by NBC Connecticut's chief meteorologist, Ryan Hanrahan. Ryan, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's awfully hot down south. Once again, we've got heat advisories in effect from Oklahoma City down through portions of coastal Texas, also Florida now, from Miami up through Jacksonville under that heat advisory. 18 million people impacted by the heat. But it's not hot everywhere. We've got this dip in the jet stream that developed over the weekend. You can see it here. That has allowed some cooler air to come down from the north. So Omaha, Nebraska today, check this out, 78 degrees, 6 degrees below average. The heat continues down south today. And it's the same deal tomorrow. Once you get across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Northeast is cooler. You know, tomorrow in Kansas City, 76 degrees for the high. That's 12 degrees below average. But Baton Rouge, Louisiana, you're looking at 98 tomorrow. It's going to be a scorcher down there. As we head into the Northeast over the next couple of days, you can see temperatures pretty nice. Looking at 80s, mid-80s in New York City, D.C., same deal, mid-80s, and even Charlotte, North Carolina, not bad at all for the time of year. Temperatures in the 80s, and the humidity values will actually be fairly low thanks to that air coming down from the north right out of Canada. We do have this stalled front here across the Carolinas, down through portions of Georgia and Florida, and they do not need any more rain down here because of all the wet weather from Debbie last week. And because of that, and a little more rain today, we've got a flood watch in effect for portions of eastern North Carolina. Not a ton of rain, but because everything's so saturated, it's not going to take a whole lot to cause some flooding issues. Could be over an inch of rain from Myrtle Beach up toward Wilmington, North Carolina, and then some heavy rain back across portions of the Midwest. Now, as we take a look at the tropics, we've got potential tropical cyclone number 5. It's in the Atlantic Ocean. It's heading toward the Caribbean, and it looks like this storm is going to strengthen into a hurricane. Right now, the National Hurricane Center has this storm becoming a tropical storm by the time it gets toward Puerto Rico by Wednesday morning, and then strengthening into a hurricane south of Bermuda by the weekend. Tropical storm watches up for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands already. And the good news with this storm, even though it is expected to strengthen into a pretty sizable hurricane, it looks like it's going to curve out to sea away from the lower 48. So Puerto Rico is going to get some strong winds and some heavy rain. But right now, it looks like Florida and up the East Coast will be safe from this one. If it gets a name, it's going to be Ernesto. All right. The next one.
Just a reminder, it is going to be a busy hurricane season.
It sure is. September 10th is the peak, so we've got a ways to go before we get there.
All right, Brian. Thanks. Appreciate it. Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now. The Summer Olympic Games in Paris, well, they are now in the history books. After the break, we're going to talk about Team USA's legendary medal wins this time around and that show-stopping closing ceremony that left us all looking forward to LA 2028.
So what can we expect when the games return to America for what will be the first time in 28 years? We've got an inside look at all the prep work already underway. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. The Paris Olympics. That might be the last time we were playing this music. They're officially in the books after a spectacular, or can I quote Thomas Bach from yesterday, a sensational closing ceremony ended the Summer Games in style.
Team USA, though, made sure to end the final days of competition on a high note. We made the weekend count, some historic events, surpassing the total number of medals won from their previous record that had been set in Tokyo.
NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons was there for every single medal that was won. Keir, good morning. Thank you for being with us. I mean, let's talk about the closing ceremony. What a spectacle that really put an end on this year's Olympics and sets us up beautifully for LA.
Oh, so much so. You know, it really was another example that we've seen over the past few weeks of that French flair, and then Tom Cruise leaping from the Stade de France down into the stadium and then riding off on a motorbike to California as the flag got handed to the mayor of Los Angeles, along with Simone Biles. Simone Biles by her side, and then that party on the beach in California with Snoop Dogg, of course, who seems to have left Paris. I wondered if he ever would. The Red Hot Chili Peppers. So much to talk about from last night. And just before that closing ceremony, with 10,000 athletes, we should mention that too, on parade there, all celebrating their success. Just before that, I got the chance to sit down with President Macron of France. He did this interview with us and a number of other international networks, really to take a bow, and I asked him what were his favorite moments.
Obviously, the opening ceremony was a great moment. I have a lot of memories, and the fact that we delivered something great for the world. And we made it, and we make it iconic. All together.
I thought you might say hanging out with Jimmy Fallon.
I think he was part of this.
President Macron with Jimmy Fallon, another iconic image from this amazing games. Jimmy Fallon, of course, helping guest host the closing ceremony last night.
Keir, hey, miss you, buddy. It was so fun to get to hang in Paris with you. Tell us, this weekend, we saw so much happen. Right. I mean, USA had so many new medals to flaunt in the closing ceremony because of so many medal-winning events this weekend. Tell us some highlights.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was extraordinary again for Team USA. Kerry Richardson helping Team USA in the 4x100 get a gold medal for her, and wild celebrations. A gold medal for the men and the women Team USA in the 4x400. And then in the basketball, again, sorry, France, Team USA winning a gold both on Saturday and Sunday against the host nation, bringing that medal count up and really you know, I mean, what an extraordinary finish for an incredible games for Team USA.
And real quickly, Keir, I mean, give us the final medal count. At least it could change, possibly. In the next few days, we'll see by one way or the other. And just for you, I mean, you had so many moments this summer. What was your favorite moment for these games?
Yeah, you're right, it could change. There is a controversy we haven't mentioned around Jordan Childs, who may not have who has had her bronze taken from her over a timing issue. So that's going to play out. Team USA, Team Gymnastics opposing that. The final medal count, though, now as it stands, 40 gold medals apiece for Team USA and China. And the US with a massive 126 overall medals, far greater than any other country. My British brethren and the French who hosted this fantastic games in third and fourth on that medal count. You asked me for my favorite moments. Honestly, my favorite thing about this was that I was able to have my wife Jess and kids come for the final days. Incredibly lucky to be able to do that and go and hang out with them at the track and field and the breaking, the women's breaking, and then they got to go to the closing ceremony last night. That was very, very special. Our family will talk about that, honestly, for the rest of our lives.
Oh, what a magical experience for you guys. Keir, thank you for everything that you have done over these last several weeks. We have worked you to the bone, and we appreciate everything. And we will talk about Jordan Childs more in just a few minutes, too, as well.
Keir, thank you so much. Great to see you again. Let's stay on some international news. Police are investigating after a helicopter crashed into a Hilton in Australia.
NBC's Claudia Lavanga has that and some other world headlines. Claudia, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. That's right. A twin-engine helicopter has hit the roof of a Hilton's DoubleTree Hotel in Cairns, Australia. Now, local authorities say that hundreds of guests have been evacuated, while the pilot, who hasn't been identified yet, died at the scene. Now, police didn't say much, apart from the fact that the helicopter was taken for an unauthorized flight. That investigation is still ongoing. Let's go to Rwanda now, where Paul Kagame has been sworn in for a fourth term as president after allegedly winning 99% of the vote in the presidential election last month. The ceremony was attended by thousands of people and several African heads of states in a stadium in the capital, Kigali. Kagame vowed to preserve peace and consolidate national unity, but human rights groups accuse him of running a repressive regime and said the claim he won 99% of the votes is proof of the lack of democracy in Rwanda. And let's end this tour of the world in London, where a new work from street artist Banksy has appeared on a police box. Banksy, who has confirmed it's his work, has turned the police box into a giant fish tank. It's the seventh artwork from Banksy depicting animals that have appeared all over the city this week, including a goat, elephants, monkeys, a wolf, pelicans, and a cat, which have literally turned London into what you can call an urban jungle. Back to you guys.
A Banksy zoo.
It's very cool when Banksy strikes, and suddenly we've got all this new stuff to see. Claudia, thank you so much.
Bye.
Well, coming up, as we were just talking about the Olympic shock being felt around the world.
Yeah, after the break, we're going to talk about why Team USA superstar Jordan Childs might be stripped of her bronze medal on the floor and the fallout that's now gripping social media and beyond. That is next on Morning News Now.
We're back with new developments in the shocking ruling that could strip USA gymnast Jordan Childs of her bronze medal in the floor exercise final, which she won after what's called a score inquiry. So the Court of Arbitration for Sport, an independent international body that settles sports-related disputes, found that Childs' coach did not appeal her original score within a specific allotted time of 1 minute.
Now USA Gymnastics is fighting back, saying it has video proof the appeal was filed in time and Childs should get to keep her medal. Childs' teammates took to social media to show their support. Some of them even accused Olympic officials of not protecting athletes' mental health. Former Team USA gymnast, six-time Olympic medalist Aly Raisman also showed her support for Childs on the Today Show this morning. She said gymnasts work their entire lives for this moment, and it is cruel and unfair that this is happening.
NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa joins us now with more on this. Emily, good morning. So walk us through where things stand right now, because a minute ago I said she could be stripped. I mean, technically, as the ruling stands right now, she is supposed to be handing that back over. But now we have this sort of counter information from Team USA. Where are we at?
I mean, talk about emotional whiplash, right?
Gosh.
Think about within the last week, since last Monday in the floor competition for the individual event, Jordan Childs has initially received a score of 5th place. Then she received a score that led her to 3rd place. And now the Olympic officials have reinstated her original 5th place score. So it's so much back and forth, and it's really quite stressful for these gymnasts. So the latest appeal from the Romanian team of gymnasts, they took issue not with the content of Childs' team's appeal and that she was undercredited for her difficulty score, but they took issue with when her coach submitted the appeal, saying that 4 seconds too late. So it came down apparently to 4 seconds, the IOC ordering Childs to reallocate her medal, to give back her medal. But USA Gymnastics, as you guys had mentioned, they've now submitted this formal letter and also what they say video evidence, time-stamped evidence that show the coach actually made the statement within the 1 minute. But I think regardless of that exact timeline, some people are saying the minute rule it feels a bit arcane.
Well, especially when they basically admitted that they did score her wrong. Like the issue began with
exactly.
the judges.
There was no issue with the difficulty undercredited.
The athletes did nothing wrong here. There's a history here. I guess Romania lost an appeal like in 2012 on the balance beam. Just both sides. How are they reacting to all this? And talk more about some of the social media support we're seeing for Childs.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point because I think the people that are facing the online bullying, it's the athletes, even though it has nothing to do with their performances. Ana Barbosu, the Romanian athlete, and Jordan Childs. So Ana Barbosu actually taking to social media in recent days saying, Jordan, my thoughts are with you. I know very well how much it hurts because I have been through the same feelings, but I know you both, and I'm sure that you'll find the strength to come back even stronger. I truly hope that at the next Olympic Games, we'll be on the same podium together. Childs, by the way, says that she's taking a break from social media because of just the negative, the tone and the negativity directed towards her. It's really quite sad. The other thing that I'll mention that in the appeal from Romanian's gymnastics team, they do request that actually Childs get to keep her bronze medal while also awarding their athlete one. That obviously was not granted.
Yeah, that seems like something that a lot of people are saying. Can they just all get bronze, especially if the mistake landed on the judges?
Yeah, and I think Ali Raisman was talking to the Today Show this morning and made this point that, this is a moment that the athletes have worked their entire lives for, and to kind of play with their feelings in this way over things that are completely out of their control feels so unfair.
Oh, and especially in a first individual medal for Jordan Childs of her career. Emily, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
The world can now look ahead to the next Summer Games right here in the U.S. Los Angeles, of course, will be the host city as the 2028 Olympics return to U.S. soil for the first time since the 2002 Winter Games back in Salt Lake City. NBC News national correspondent Jacob Soboroff joins us now with a look at how the city is getting ready.
Hey there. As a lifelong Angelino, I know firsthand how the 1984 Games are a part of the fabric of the city. And in less than 4 years, the Summer Olympics will once again return to the City of Angels. It'll be the 9th time the Games will take place on U.S. soil, the 3rd time L.A. has hosted the Olympics. But in 2028, a modern Los Angeles will face new challenges as the whole world watches. With the end of the 2024 Paris Summer Olympics, a new countdown to the next Summer Games is already underway. In just 4 years, Los Angeles will once again take center stage as the host city of the 2028 Olympics.
We've now flipped the switch from planning to delivery.
It's been 40 years since L.A. last held that honor.
Carl Lewis doing it.
When Olympian Carl Lewis took home 4 gold medals right here at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. The biggest track and field stars from around the world will once again get the chance to compete in this storied venue, a feeling Lewis remembers well.
That was a life-changing thing. You'll never be this big again in your whole life. You'll never have this chance again in your whole life.
It's a venue that's over 100 years old.
Casey Wasserman is the chairman of the LA 28 committee. He says turning the Coliseum, a venue from the 32 and 84 games where Rocket Man famously flew, from a football field back into a track and field venue will be the most expensive investment of the games, but one he believes is worth it.
To put a track back in means we have to spend about $150 million, and the track will go 14 rows into the stands. That's how big the competition field is. Because we have to put that in, we'll actually have the warm-up track underneath the track.
The Coliseum will be an important part of the opening ceremonies, but the torch will end its journey at SoFi Stadium, which will also serve as the Olympic swimming venue.
We will be underwater, literally be underwater right here?
We will definitely be underwater right where we are. It will be a swim stadium. It will be the biggest swim competition ever.
Wasserman recruited Olympian Janet Evans to help bring the games to life.
It's not lost on me that I am sitting with Janet Evans in what will be the world's largest swimming stadium.
It's incredible to look around and see the facility, to see what our athletes will be experiencing. It's going to be incredible.
Putting on what will be the largest peacetime gathering in world history is no small undertaking. But there won't be any new venues built and no new permanent construction, a unique distinction. More than 80 existing venues across Southern California will hold Olympic events. Gymnastics will take place downtown at the Crypto.com Arena, and Riviera Country Club will host golf.
Welcome to Intuit Dome. It's LA's newest sports facility and the new home of the Los Angeles Clippers. 4 years from now, it'll be home to Olympic basketball and almost 18,000 fans from around the world.
Having the Olympics in the second largest city in the U.S. comes with its share of challenges, including the city's legendary traffic. Mayor Karen Bass says it's all part of the plan to make it manageable.
The games are going to be car-free, which means if you want to go to any of the venues, you're going to have to take public transportation.
For all those involved, 4 years will go fast. As for Wasserman, he's excited to make a special impact on the youngest fans.
Hopefully inspires kids to do lots of different things, sport being one of them.
To second Wasserman's message, I was one of those young people at the games in '84, even if I don't remember. I was just 1 year old. My dad was one of the hundreds of people to run with the torch during the Olympic relay. My mom and I watched as he biked along the Pacific Coast Highway in Santa Monica. It is going to be spectacular. Back to you.
All right, Jacob, thank you.
How cool is that? Well, along with the growing excitement for the Summer Games in Los Angeles, many are also wondering how a city notorious for traffic, as we just heard there, is going to try to deliver on this promise of a car-free Olympics. NBC News national climate reporter Chase Kane spoke to the head of sustainability to find out.
2028 will be LA's third time hosting the Olympics, but it'll also be a first. The first time any stadium has hosted the Summer Games 3 different times. That'll be true for both the Memorial Coliseum and the Rose Bowl. And by embracing these historic venues, LA 28 is also looking toward the future, trying to limit their carbon footprint and going even one step further than Paris.
So we're really lucky here in LA. We'll be the first games to build no new permanent venues. Now, of course, we will have some temporary venues. And so we're looking at how do we use circular design to minimize the impacts of those buildings as well.
And zooming out to the big picture here with hosting an Olympics, hosting an Olympic Games isn't exactly the most climate friendly thing to do. How are you thinking about this, especially with all of the progress and advancements that Paris has made?
Well, a big part of this is building on the lessons learned in Paris and being able to kind of take the next step here in LA. For me, I think about it as climate change being really an existential threat to sport. If you look at extreme heat, an athlete who's coming to perform on maybe the most important sporting day of their life in the Olympics, extreme heat could potentially compromise that performance.
Since you mentioned extreme heat, how are you thinking for yourself?
I think this is an area where we expect to partner significantly with our government partners as well. LA appointed its first chief heat officer in 2022. And so we're lucky that we have local resources to plug into here.
Part of that is working with like LA Metro. They have some ambitious plans underway to expand public transit. How do you describe sort of like what the Olympics can mean for a region like Southern California?
We like to think of ourselves as a catalyst. There's a lot of work, on transit specifically that we need to get done that will improve the public transportation system in LA. And the games can act as a catalyst to help accelerate them, but also to see if we can help people integrate transit into their daily lives.
When we just think about the reputation of Los Angeles, that might be a tall mountain to climb.
It is, yeah. I think the flip side of that is that there's a lot of opportunity.
How do you think sports and athletics and the Olympics specifically can actually be a force for good in the context of climate change and climate action?
Yeah, it's a good question. For us, California's environmental leadership provides a really strong foundation on which to build a sustainability program. But ultimately, I think our power is our platform, our ability to bring people together to inform and engage around sustainability. To me, that's really the unique power of the game. games, and we absolutely want to leverage that.
This fall, we'll get a report card from Paris 2024 about how well they did at meeting their climate goals. And then early next year, we'll get a detailed plan from LA 28 about how they hope to host their own climate-conscious Olympics. In Los Angeles, I'm national climate reporter Chase Kane.
Coming up, a weekend box office blitz that's naming one Hollywood power couple as the sires of the silver screen this summer.
But Blake Lively's and Ryan Reynolds' record run isn't without its controversy. After the break, the rumors swirling on social media around Lively's alleged behind-the-scenes feud with It Ends With Us co-star Justin Baldoni. That's next. Stick around. Welcome back. Let's get you some money news. Joe, might be a good time to upgrade that iPhone 7
Plus.
Because Apple is preparing to unveil its newest iPhone. Thank God it's the Plus. Never mind.
Savannah, and now is that another money news? Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Savannah. Good morning. All right, Joe, are you ready? Apple is expected to unveil the new iPhone 16 lineup in a few weeks. Now, Bloomberg reports it won't look much different than the 15 or add any major new features, but the company is hoping it will keep sales stable until more innovative phones are ready next year. Now, the big marketing point will be the new Apple Intelligence AI tools. There will also be a new camera button on the side of the phone, offering better control for autofocus and zoom. Susan Wojcicki, that's the pioneering tech executive who helped shape Google and YouTube, has died at the age of 56. Her husband says she had non-small cell lung cancer. Wojcicki played a major role in the creation of Google and was YouTube's CEO for a decade before stepping down last year. She rented the garage of her California home to Google co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin in 1998, and then became one of the first group of employees. And Deadpool and Wolverine remains at the top of the box office for the third straight week and has now surpassed $1 billion worldwide. The Disney and Marvel movie bringing in an estimated $54 million in North America, according to ComScore. It's only the second R-rated movie to reach $1 billion following Joker in 2019, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, everybody, for context, Joe's iPhone has the button.
It is the button. Yeah, I feel like now I have to make it to 17, right? I mean, 7, 17.
Sure,
Joe,
on 16 and you're on 7 is so wild. Silvana, thank you very much.
All right, that last number about Deadpool and Wolverine, perfect segue to our next one. Right behind that, the highly anticipated film adaptation of the bestseller It Ends With Us. It had a big opening weekend, earning $50 million in the U.S. and beating expectations.
Its journey, though, into theaters might not have been so smooth. For months, fans have been speculating about tension between the movie's director and also one of its stars, Justin Baldoni, and his co-star, Blake Lively.
So let's bring in NBC News youth and internet culture reporter Callan Rosenblatt for more on this. Callan, good morning. So we should say neither Lively nor Baldoni have responded to our request for comment on all this, but walk us through some of the fan theories going around on TikTok. Have any of the cast members addressed this issue directly?
Hey, Joe. Hey, Savannah. So, again, as you said, this is all speculation. These are all rumors. No one has addressed any of the controversy, the alleged controversy around this movie. So, effectively, what some people are saying is that they noticed that Baldoni is in no photographs with Lively, who appeared in photographs with a lot of her co-stars at the New York premiere. While Baldoni has said lots of positive things about his co-star, Blake Lively has been pretty mum about him. There was an interview that Jenny Slate, who also stars in the movie, gave in which she was asked about whether or not, she thought it was interesting that Baldoni both stars in the movie, but also directs it. And she kind of gave this answer that was along the lines of like, I'm really glad I just have one job. And so fans were speculating that may be an allusion to something that happened on set. And additionally, just a few bizarre behind the scenes activities, such as most of the cast does not follow Baldoni on social media while he follows them. So again, nothing huge, nothing that we've confirmed, but these little bits and pieces that seem to belie maybe there was a little tension on this set.
It is interesting that they are not pictured together on any of these red carpets or anything like that when they're just both the major stars of the film, and they've been so much marketing around the film. Also, there's confusion. This did surprise me about the involvement of Ryan Reynolds. Of course, that's Blake Lively's husband. Lively credited him with writing this iconic rooftop scene. She said it's this big turning point. How much of a role did he play here, and do we know why he was involved?
Yeah, so there's a really pivotal scene in both the book and the movie that takes place on a rooftop. And according to Lively, Ryan Reynolds, her husband, helped her to sort of write this scene. Now, Lively's also a producer on the film. And it's interesting that he had some creative, input here. He's not listed as a writer. He's not listed as a producer. But she gave a statement that effectively said, everything I do, he's a part of, and everything he does, I'm a part of. We're a couple in this. We help each other when we're on different projects. And so, there's some speculation that perhaps his creative input overstepped a line, but he did apparently help write dialogue for this very pivotal, very famous scene in this book. And again, fans are wondering, is this, part of the reason why there was this perceived tension on the red carpet?
Controversy aside, Reynolds and Lively are dominating the box office right now. As we mentioned, Deadpool raked in an estimated $54.2 million over the weekend and much more before that. It Ends With Us had $50 million for its debut weekend. It's not Barbenheimer, I know that, but how are they doing? I mean, the box office needs a boost, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, we love an event movie. We love when there's a double feature. Again, not a Barbenheimer, but It Ends With Us really, first of all, it tripled its budget. It outperformed what it was anticipated to make. Again, Deadpool and Wolverine reaching over $1 billion internationally. So this is like a Reynolds Lively power couple, couple of weeks at the box office. It's been really fantastic. It's, I think people are really hungry to go to the movie theater as they were, we saw during Barbenheimer. And so it's a great time to go to the movies.
And you can get a little bit of everything then.
I know.
Your romance with your perhaps behind-the-scenes drama, or not, or maybe they're just maybe Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni are having dinner together and just watching all the coverage and laughing.
Maybe it's nothing. I think it totally could be. But here we are talking about it.
It could be.
Maybe
it could be. And it could be planned.
Maybe it ends with us. Okay.
Wow. Good one, Joe.
High five for that. That was impressive.
Don't leave her hanging.
Callan, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Callan. Cheers.
Thank you.
Coming up, looking for that last-minute summer getaway before temperatures drop.
Well, after the break, we've got your one-stop shop for all the deals you need to know about if you want to get away. Stay with us. That's next.
Welcome back. So as we've mentioned, as you might be able to tell, today's my first day back here in the anchor chair after an incredible few weeks covering the Olympics in Paris. My first time headed to an Olympics. So here's some of my most memorable moments over the past 3 weeks. So get this. I got to try making authentic macarons, I think is how I'm supposed to say it.
We ran that, yes. I never figured it out. I think if you just say it fast. And
exactly. Yeah, because they're like, it's not macaroons, even though that's how we say it. Which is very hard, by the way. Like, the little intricacies of making these is really something. And he right there, Mikhail, my teacher, master pastry chef, it was so much fun. And this is in this gorgeous townhouse in the middle of Paris. It was so cool. I also got to go tour France's oldest food market. It's from the late 1600s, if you can believe that. And now in it, all these famous restaurants are in there, but it's also where Parisians do their grocery shopping. I got behind the counter and, okay, that looks not great in that picture. I swear it was delicious. It looked like a big pile of who knows what. It was so good, and it was so much fun. They let me hop behind the counter. It's a huge part of Parisian culture to go grocery shop as well as, go out to dinner or lunch in these markets. I also got to look around the historic Palace of Versailles. There's the Hall of Mirrors. We had this private tour where we got to go into a bunch of the special rooms. Also, we were there because this was used as an Olympic venue. It's where equestrian happened out in the gardens at Versailles, which was just mind-blowing to see.
That must have been beautiful backdrop.
Oh, it was so gorgeous. And where you were at Equestrian, you could see the palace out in the background with the whole garden stretching up to it. It was like really incredible. We got to golf cart around the Palace of Versailles. It was amazing. I also, probably the best part of the whole thing was getting to talk to and interview and congratulate some of my favorite Olympians. Right there, I'm with rugby player Ilona Maher. Back in December last year, I actually got to go to her house, meet her whole family, because we profiled her and did a story. And then, of course, they finally took home a medal for women's rugby sevens, a bronze medal, and she's just become a total social media sensation. She's so much fun. I also got to talk to pommel horse specialist, glasses icon, fellow glasses community member, Steven Nedorosik. He had this incredible moment. Of course, everybody now knows he only does the pommel horse. So we sort of like came out. Everybody said it was like Superman, Clark Kent, taking those glasses off and hopping on the pommel horse, where we won a team medal as well as he won that individual medal, which is so exciting for him on pommel horse. I also got to chat with golfer Xander Schauffele. He was a gold medal contender, defending champ. He did not take home a medal, but we went to high school together, so it was so much fun to get to be like the two Scripps kids who made it to the Olympics. It was awesome. Obviously won as an
I'm guessing
athlete,
he was a good
just
golfer in high school.
He was a fabulous golfer in high school. He was on the golf team. He was very dedicated. He said in our interview, I missed like every high school party, all these dances and stuff to dedicate myself to golf. But look, took him all the way to the Olympics, and right now he's world number 2, and he's doing great.
What a fun trip. I mean, so many memories.
It was. So many memories. I learned so much. It was so cool getting to be, part of an Olympic operation, which is just so incredible what our sports team puts together to bring you all the games across all these different time zones and platforms, and it was really cool to be there.
Well, we are so glad to have you back.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
All right, so if this inspired you to travel, you're hoping to squeeze in one more summer getaway before the end of the season, you might actually be in luck.
Yeah, according to travel sites Hopper and Priceline, as of June, international and domestic flights were at least 5% cheaper than the same time last year. Car rentals and hotels, those are also down roughly 6% and 3% respectively. So for more on how to take advantage of these deals, let's bring in Melanie Fish. She's a travel expert for Expedia, and she joins us now on this. Melanie, good morning. What's behind this recent price drop? Because I will say, in looking at international stuff, it's not that it's cheap. I think it's just that it's kind of lower than it was, but maybe we can really find a last-minute deal.
Well, 'tis the season. This is this blink of time, kind of when the kids are back in school, but Labor Day hasn't happened yet. So there really are some deals to be found now. And then, of course, right after Labor Day starts shoulder season, which is traditionally the time when prices drop.
Are there parts of the country that are less expensive than others? I mean, what are the cities we should be putting on our travel app alerts?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, there are. I checked averages on Expedia, and there are a couple of cities where hotel prices are trending down year over year. So Nashville down 15%, Salt Lake City down 20%, and then a great getaway spot, New Orleans, is down around 10%. These are just a couple of examples. And a little plug for a New Orleans getaway. Yes, it is hot, hot, hot this time of year, but in August, they also have an event called Culinary, where you can buy these amazing 3- and 4-course meals at all the best restaurants for a price fix, really good value. And the food there is amazing. So there's a little tip.
They probably have air conditioning. So.
Yes, indoors, unlike France, by the way, where they do not. Melanie, we've got a little under a minute left here, but do you think we could see these lower prices extend to the fall, or is this one of those times where if we want to take a trip, we should be booking it now to get that deal?
Well, I always say now's the time to book a trip, but absolutely, shoulder season starts Labor Day, and so that's when you see these prices dip, and you have a really good chance to get some good value before the holiday travel season starts. And especially look at beaches. Temperatures aren't dropping that much, but prices on private vacation homes are dropping pretty dramatically. I looked at 30A this morning, that beautiful stretch of beaches in Florida, and in Watercolor, there was a house available, a 3-bedroom house on the beach for $500 a night.
Wow.
That just a month ago was $1,500 a night.
Goodness.
So yes, now is the time.
There you go. All right, Melanie Fish, good advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.